Mr. Gary Russell Jr.'s brother, Gary Antuanne Russell, got a message for Devin Haney. You should have kept your mouth shut. Now you got to see me when you come to 140, and I'm knocking you clean out. Before we get into this next video, make sure that you like the video. Make sure that you sub to the channel if you haven't already subbed to the channel. And don't forget the live streams Monday through Friday, 11:30 Pacific, 12:30 Mountain Time, 1:30 Central, and 2:30 on the East Coast. What's happening with y'all? Now, recently, Mr. Gary Russell Jr., he fights Mark Messiah with one arm, and he schooled Mark Messiah, in my opinion, with one arm. But he didn't get the decision, and he ended up getting his belt taken away from him that he had for 7 years. So Mr. Gary Russell is no longer the WBC champion at 126 pounds. Right after Mr. Gary Russell loses to Mark Messiah, Devin Haney, he takes it upon himself to get on Twitter and, pokes at Gary Russell. He clowns Gary Russell saying, ha ha ha, Mr. Cap-a-Lot, you got beat by a bum. So, when you say things, sometimes there is consequences behind the things that you say. And we know that Gary Russell and Devin Haney, they've had their back and forth. They were supposed to fight each other, last year. And a lot of things went on with the negotiations in that situation. It was reported from Gary Russell's camp that they sent him a faulty contract. It was a lot of holes in that contract, and Gary Russell refused to sign the contract. So, whatever happened between Devin Haney and Gary Russell's camp, they didn't get the fight signed. Now, Gary Russell has recently talked about Devin Haney, and he was like, hey, it wasn't no personal thing with Devin Haney. It was just all business, shawty. Wasn't personal. So he hasn't really talked about Devin Haney, other than just saying it wasn't personal. He's been talking about Gervonta Tank Davis and Vasyl Lomachenko. He kind of left the Devin Haney fight behind him. So it wasn't, didn't look like it was no grudge, right? But with these recent tweets that Devin Haney decided to come out and poke fun of Mr. Gary Russell, he forgot one thing, right? Because I know he was probably thinking, now I ain't got to deal with this dude no more because he lost, right? And now Gary Russell is going to probably be blackballed, and I don't have to deal with him no more. But he forgot. There's a bigger, younger, badder Gary Russell that's right there, 5 pounds above you. He didn't take too kind to those tweets that you made on Twitter on Saturday night. And his name is Gary Antuanne Russell. Now, Gary Antuanne Russell is 14-0 with 14 KOs, standing 5'10" with a 69-inch arm reach. Yeah, I said it, 5'10". And you know what that means? That means you got a bigger, badder, harder puncher version of Gary Russell you got to deal with, Devin Haney. You feel me? Sometimes when you say things, you might want to watch what you say. And Gary Antuanne Russell, he wants to let the world know, and this is coming from Gary Antuanne Russell himself, that, hey, you said that you're going to move to 140 pounds? Well, after I knock out Victor Postal, right, and I'll be a champion right here in the division, my division, 140 real soon. Once you come up, I want to see you because you got to pay for what you said about my brother. Now it's personal. And when you come up to 140 pounds, you say that everybody was ducking you at 135. Well, I want to see you at 140. And make sure that you do not duck me because I'm on your helmet, right? He says, and I'm on this dude's helmet. And I'm knocking Devin Haney smooth the fuck out if he comes out to 140. If he once he moves up to 140, he got to see me because I run this division And I'm knocking him smooth out for what he said. So yeah, you said you wanted to fight at Russell. You try to run around and act like that my brother was ducking you and you sent a contract that should have been signed. You know what that contract was that you sent, right? You know that it was actually a binding contract and it was supposed to be an offer sheet. You know that the writing in that contract was not correct. And you tried to play my brother. Now, I'm going to play with your jaw. And he says that Devin Haney can't punch his way through a wet paper bag. And he want to see Devin Haney ASAP as soon as he moves up to 140-pound division. So I'm a fan of both of these fighters, personally. I think Devin Haney is one of the most feared duck fighters at 135 pounds. Also, I think that Antuanne Russell is the best fighter at 140 pounds. He just haven't got his chance to show it yet. You know, the last time we seen Antuanne Russell, he stepped in the ring against Gervonta Santiago, the guy that actually beat Adrian Broner. But Adrian Broner, you know, they bailed AB out, right? But Gervonta Santiago, he went in the ring against Antuanne Russell, and Antuanne Russell destroyed Santiago. Also, a lot of people don't realize that Antuanne Russell actually beat Jaron Boots Ennis in the amateurs 3 times. And we know how special Jaron Boots Ennis is. Yeah, and Antuanne Russell beat that man 3 times in the amateurs. Now, you know, we know that Jaron Boots Ennis has gotten a lot better since the amateurs. But, Houston, we have a problem. Antuanne Russell has also gotten a lot better since the amateurs. But back to Devin Haney and Antuanne Russell. You know, like I said, Devin Haney has been talked about for being one of the most, you know, ducked opponents at 135. Devin Haney is looking to get a shot at the undisputed, right? He is the WBC champion, but George Kambosos has all of the other belts at 135, and Devin Haney is petitioning for that fight against George Kambosos to become undisputed at 135. And if he can get that fight, it's been known that Devin Haney is talking about moving up to 140 because Devin Haney is big for the 135 weight class, and he wants to make a move to 140 and go up there and, you know, see what he can do at 140. Well, now we know that he has a true dog that's going to be waiting on him, drooling at the mouth, hungry, right? And personally, like I said, I like both of these fighters. Both of these fighters are 2 of my favorite fighters, but I'm going to keep it real with y'all. To me, Devin Haney ain't messing with Antuanne Russell, because Antuanne Russell is dangerous and he on a whole nother level. And I think that Antuanne Russell will do exactly what he say he gonna do. I think that he will knock out Devin Haney. That's just my personal opinion. I'm a big fan of Devin Haney, but when I break this fight down, I see Antuanne Russell knocking Devin Haney clean the fuck out, just like he said he was gonna do. And the thing is Devin Haney, you know, you thought it was funny that Gary Russell got robbed, but now you're going to have to see his brother. And your thing is that everybody is ducking you, and we know that you guys are willing to fight any and everybody. When you move up to 140, now you got to make sure you keep that same energy, because now when you go to 140, it's going to be different, because you got a man that's going to be chasing you down, calling you out, because he want to prove a point, right? He wants to prove a point against you, Devin Haney, because he didn't like the tweet that you sent out. He don't like how you and your father move. Now, that's between the Russell family and the Haney family. That ain't none of my business, but I'm just letting y'all know they don't like how y'all move. And they don't like that little slick talk that Devin Haney been talking. And they feel some type of way about it. And Antuanne Russell wants to make an example out of Devin Haney. And this is a fight that we got to see. We got to see it, Because you can't move up to 140 and say that everybody's ducking you and then you don't want to fight Antuanne Russell. So I'm looking forward to seeing Devin Haney keep that same energy that he's been having at 135. And the energy that I'm talking about is willing to fight any and everybody. We couldn't get the Mr. Gary Russell Jr. and Devin Haney fight done at 135. But what we can get is Devin Haney and Antuanne Russell. And he said he will be waiting for you. And when y'all do step in the ring, he's going to knock you clean the F out. Now, let's see if they can make this happen within the next year. I can't wait to see it. And we know that Antuanne Russell is about to fight Victor Posto in February. That's going to be a hell of a fight. I look to see Antuanne Russell make a huge statement and then call out all of the big dogs. And one of the big dogs is going to be Devin Haney. And he is going to let Devin Haney know that you got to see me when you come to 140 pounds. Let me know what y'all think of a potential fight between Antuanne Russell and Devin Haney. Make sure that you hit my like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subbed to the channel. And y'all already know what it is. There you go, talking that boxing again. And I'm gone.